All right, let's go.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for making the effort to waking up this morning after the amazing party with Pantheon sponsored drinks. That was a last-minute thing. My name is Alex Moreno. I'm the developer relations for EMEA in Pantheon. I've worked for so many years as a technical role as technical architect for big companies like BBC, Capgemini, IKEA, big pharma companies. And I'm super excited to be here to talk about this topic, about the Pantheon infrastructure and about where we are going and about some of the products that can be unleashed because of the infrastructure. And with me is Scott Massey.
Sure.
Did I pronounce
Yeah.
Massey?
That's beautiful. Yeah. It sounds better that way. Yeah, my name is Scott, and I've been with Pantheon for almost 10 years now. Since we started, I was a hire. The four founders started Pantheon and assumed it was going to work beautifully. And then 2 weeks later, they had 300 support tickets and 100 new support tickets every day. And so they decided to bring in me to run support and customer success and onboarding and other stuff. And now I'm managing director, opening up our EMEA branches and hiring and training people and helping us become a global company.
And traveling all over the world.
Yes, yes. I live in Tokyo and go between Tokyo and London. And now that we're finally back to meeting in person, traveling all to Drupal camps and stuff.
Funny thing about Scott is that you never know where he's going to be. You have a meeting with him by Zoom, and maybe he's in Tokyo, maybe he's in Los Angeles, maybe he's in Zaragoza.
Yeah.
Or lost in a train trying to get from Porto to...
Yeah, yesterday I went from Porto, kind of all over Spain, back to Porto, and then to Zaragoza, but I'm glad to be here. So this isn't a sales pitch. It's kind of a way to talk about like what we've learned about delivering websites and delivering value for customers over the last 10 years. Pantheon was founded in 2010 by a bunch of agency people from Chapter 3 and 4 Kitchens who were building the first big sites on Pantheon. And they had this idea that if they could put together a really cool stack and include best practices in development like Git and that sort of thing, and if we did it right, then we can give customers like scalable production, instantly scalable production and lots of free environments and that sort of thing. So part of our decision-making process is how do we give you a lot of as much stuff as we can for free, especially for developers. Developers have never had to pay for Pantheon. We've always given sandboxes and things like that. And as a business, we've had to think about how to do that and how to deliver value. So we started, very small, and my first project was moving all of our customers off of our virtual machine V1 of Pantheon onto this really amazing new technology called containers. And we figured that if we use these containers, we could scale up, but more importantly, we could scale to zero. And so when people weren't using environments, we could shut them down and not pay for them, as opposed to leaving them running like virtual machines and things like that. So as we've grown, we have lots of customers, we have lots of agencies. Most of our users are at agencies. We get a billion page views a month. We picked up WordPress, and now we're doing decoupled sites, JavaScript front ends that integrate on our platform. And part of my job, like I said, is we opened a London office in addition to our San Francisco office. And I'm trying to learn and teach the rest of the company how to be a global company. And we're hiring for lots of different roles. So if you're interested, reach out to me if you don't see something on our jobs board, but you're interested in.
One thing you were mentioning about everything we are going to talk here is the infrastructure, the innovation. One thing it surprised me on Pantheon is that normally in other operations companies or hosting, however you want to call it, they are more invested on let's improve this to improve margins, to make more money. And you see that the pattern here is more about let's improve this to give you better tools, right? It's not just necessarily about making money. We need to make money because we are a company and we need to pay for sponsorship like DrupalCamp Spain. But the goal is giving developers better tools. Scott, I was thinking I'm curious because you were one of the founding parts on, how many people were you in the office in San Francisco when you started?
Yeah, so including founders, I was employee number 10 or 12. I was hired before marketing, like there was no marketing department. So we hired someone in marketing, but we still needed someone who could talk about the platform. So I was doing all the events. And when we hired marketing, I trained them how to do events. So it gives me a lot to remind people, that whenever they question me, I can say like, I trained you how to do that. You can't tell me what to do. I taught everyone here how to use it. So yeah. We tried to invent this thing that we now call WebOps, but it's a way to kind of connect what developers do with what their stakeholders and decision makers do and kind of put it all together. So, there's DevOps, which is something that's existed a while for developers, but marketers and IT managers also play a role in running a website. So we wanted to build something that included everybody in the scenario. So we started with containers pretty early before Docker existed as a company. They were .cloud, but they weren't selling containers. They kind of pivoted to that. At that point, GitHub wasn't really an option because it was very much in beta. Like at that point in 2010, 2011, everything had beta on it. And so we figured, let's just put our own GitHub repo in there. And if you've used Pantheon, sometimes that's nice. Sometimes it's not so nice in 2022 to have another repo to think about. But at that point, it was kind of the only way to do it that we thought. We started moving from VMs. We looked at a bunch of different, like at that point, GCP wasn't around, but Rackspace and SoftLayer and AWS was around, but very young. And AWS at that time was also very slow. And in our initial beta tests and building our MVP, Rackspace was much better. And then, behind our dashboard, there's all these jobs running and orchestration. And so we still have this massive army of 500 Jenkinses that are all integrated and help us deploy and run updates and kind of everything behind the scenes that you see moving. Like if you've ever used Pantheon and you see our spinner running, that's probably a Jenkins server somewhere executing a job. And then one thing that we realized early on is that to do this on the cloud the right way, typical kind of Gluster file systems and what we saw other companies using just wasn't going to work for what we wanted to do. So we took over this FuseDAV client and built our own file system, and it's turned into kind of a core part of our offering, and it's pretty awesome, and it's probably one of the pieces of IP that we're really, really proud of.
To me, seeing this in 2010, it shows the leadership in Pantheon, right? The innovation, because some of the things they did here in 2010 is what some companies are trying to do now with containers, trying to isolate your sites. All these things that were already in Pantheon on that time, years before Docker, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to listen to David Strauss, our CTO, he's a pretty impressive guy and thought up a lot of this. Usually after consulting with me, I would give him the seed for the idea and he would make it real. That's hopefully you can cut that part later. But that's what we did, and believe it or not, now we're trying to get rid of most of that. Like over the years, technology changes and that sort of thing, and the things that we built ourselves no longer serve us like they used to. For example, Fastly is our edge layer. Pantheon has a concept of the edge layer that wraps around all of the sites and provides things like SSL termination routing, and varnish, and CDN type features. And originally it was us running our own varnish servers, and then we realized it was a limitation, really. Like, one, it didn't give customers any sort of customization ability. It was us ourselves, engineers, managing that and deploying them and updating them and that sort of thing. And when companies like Fastly came out, like Fastly allows us to do several things, but do termination at the edge layer rather than at the origin, which is how you really want to be doing it. And it also allows for really granular cache invalidation and those sort of things. And additionally, there's going to be some kind of personalization stuff that we're going to be launching that should be pretty exciting. And then, yeah, we launched Let's Encrypt because into 2013, you were still having to upload your own cert, and like that's something that, like, if you've ever worked a support ticket with, a marketing director whose developer left and they're trying to create their own cert to upload, like that's very difficult and frustrating for the company, for the customer, and for the support team as well. And then probably like one of the biggest things that we did is we got off of Rackspace. Like, Rackspace sort of like gave up on cloud and just said, we're just going to support people, and we're not going to run our own cloud anymore. And so we were sort of faced with the option of moving somewhere to another provider, and we were sort of hitting our limits. Like, we reached the end of Rackspace's cloud many times as we've spun up sites for people. And luckily for us, I think we had better options. We had AWS, which had improved significantly, but we also had Google Cloud to choose from, and that's what we decided to do. And this is like one example of like our final migration, where we moved 40,000 sites, and that's US dates there. So that's within 10 days, we were able to migrate 40,000 sites off of Rackspace onto Google Cloud. And the benefits that we've come across have been really amazing. I think, we chose Google Cloud for a couple different reasons that we're going to get into, but Google Cloud in general has some advantages in that it was kind of thought up, kind of second mover benefit. It was thought up based on concepts such as Borg, which became Kubernetes, and container orchestration, rather than Amazon, which has adopted some of those things, but it really began as kind of VMs as fast as possible, spinning up VMs and S3 boxes and sort of block data and concepts like that have sort of evolved. So we got to kind of pick up on where Google was and take advantage of the tools that worked. And originally it was just moving our runtime matrix, which are the websites on the platform, but then it also grew to include using Kubernetes for like container builds and integrated Composer, like running Composer builds and that sort of thing. So we were able to integrate it in our way and take advantage of those things. That's kind of where we're at now as far as where Pantheon is. But as we move forward, we have a lot more ways that we can get benefits out of that relationship and pass it on to customers, because there's this, Google and other companies have this concept of like a workspace, and now that, and after working with Google for some time, like what we can essentially do is create a workspace for every customer and bring in different services from that workspace. And so that allows you to choose from a couple different levels of tools that Google offers, being their infrastructure components or their marketplace, SendGrid and things like that. And also their other components like Bigtable or some of their data tools that we think like developers can really have some fun with and create solutions that involve big data or involve like, since Google tracks everything that goes on in Chrome across the internet, like there's things that developers can do with that should be really interesting, along with just being able to choose, Solar or Elasticsearch or those things that are available. So we think that this opens up, like in a way it's scary because it kind of destroys the concept of what Pantheon is for me and has been for 10 years, but it opens us up to try something, rebuild something that's of much more value to you and to the people that you build websites for.
There is one piece of information on the previous slide that to me is mind-blowing. Like, think the last site that you had to migrate. I think how long it took you to migrate one single site, right? Think about how many 10,000 customers?
Yeah, 40,000.
Moving them from the old infrastructure to the new one. Like, I know some hosting companies that they've been trying to move into the new infrastructure and it's taking years, right? Seeing this in 2 weeks.
Yeah. One of the things that I wish we did more of is like, I think the most impressive thing about Pantheon is what goes on behind, like in the DevOps side and the SaaS space and the automation and things like that. And we never talk about it. By the time it gets to marketing, it's all about, efficiency. It's all sort of marketing talk, but like we can grow take a site from 0 to the largest site on our platform in seconds, through spinning up containers. And like the average, some more like spec porn, like the average length of a container, the average age of a container on our platform is about 45 days. Like we're constantly creating and destroying containers, and we deploy hundreds of times a week to our platform and are making updates, and like the telemetry behind the sites to provide 3.5 nines or 4 nines, that kind of SLA. We're a relatively small company. We have 100 engineers. And we're delivering something like 200,000 sites at this point.
One funny fact, when I joined, I didn't think I mentioned, I joined like a couple of months ago. One funny fact is I was asking someone in product engineering, like, the product is amazing. How is the release cycle? How many times do you release per month? It's like, what do you mean? We release 3 or 4 times per day in the whole infrastructure, right? And no customer notices about that.
So yeah, and then so what specifically is coming? So that army of Jenkinses that I mentioned is already being scaled down, and we're moving to Google Cloud Build to kind of take the role as the job runner. And what that does for us, it provides a better experience. It allows us to do more with less people. And it allows us to give you all options for what we've been hearing for years is like, why do I have to use this other repo? Like, why can't I just bring my own GitHub repo or Bitbucket repo? And it allows us to hook into that in more of a native environment and a better developer experience. Cloud Build switches off to Cloud Run. Is this where you take over? Okay, so Cloud Build is the job runner, so to speak, and that will deploy to Cloud Run, which replaces our next generation matrix, which is kind of the new version of like the workspace that I showed you, where we're using containers on Google Cloud based on that configuration. There's like cool things that we're trying where we can take one of those containers and spin that up locally, and you can access it on your local environment for debugging and things like that. But it just gives us like an amazing new set of choices to make in building this out.
All right, this is me. Yep. So one of the things that we are doing in Pantheon is, as Scott was saying, moving towards the new infrastructure. At the end, we are talking about legacy code, and as any company, we are 11, 12 years old, and all the technology that was built 10 years ago, regardless of how amazing it was, it's old nowadays. And all the things we are talking about, Google Cloud, Fastly, all these things have been improving the way that Pantheon could have been built 10 years ago, right? And what is happening is that we are realizing about that, and we are realizing that we can remove those legacy parts and start improving the platform using things like that. Like Fastly, there is a huge investment on the relation with Fastly, and things like the routing technology, things what happens with when a customer tries to hit one of your websites. They go to Pantheon, and there has to be some decision on how this customer goes to the platform, right? This was custom code built on sticks, but nowadays it could be done much easier with Fastly. So these are some of the things that they've been they are being rebuilt on the new platform.
And one of the things about like one of the sort of interesting things we can do with computing at the edge now that it's there, we can bypass load balancers completely for a lot of tasks, which is, you know, milliseconds back to the customer because we can do calculation and routing at the edge layer and send it right to our sites without having to without something in the middle, which we currently have to do.
Yeah, things like deploying. We are talking nowadays about the couple and like applications and Drupal. This is using that technology, and actually, if this sounds familiar, it's because this is actually what the coupled product that I will talk in a few minutes is using. Yeah, and it has things like self-healing technology, which sounds like very modern, but it's actually a technology that was reinvented 10 years ago. Is this one? Yes. Things like commodity, right? You don't want to, the same reason you as a customer, you don't want to be taking care of things like MySQL, what version of PHP. These are the reasons why you are choosing a technology like Pantheon, right? Because you want to be focusing on what you are doing on your daily basis, on building amazing application and beautiful solution for customers. This as well, from Pantheon point of view, is a commodity. So if you can move even further this to Google Cloud, for example, and you can focus on things like improving or optimizing this product for our type of customers, you are getting benefits all across the board from our point of view, as I was saying before, like reducing costs, but not for the sake of improving margins, but for the sake of giving you better tools. And things like making developers able to like spin up environments very easily, what Scott was saying about, you know, the spin up environments and how like 45 days average life. So things like that improve a lot the margin costs and the kind of things that we can do for you. And things like, do you know Google Cloud Marketplace? Anyone? So it's a huge market where you can just go there and say, okay, I'm interested on MongoDB, I'm interested on, I don't know, big data, anything that you can imagine in there. The new platform being built on top of Google Cloud means that you as a customer could go to the marketplace and say, okay, Solar is amazing, but actually I'm more interested on Elastic, right? Why not just bring in Elastic, plug it in on Pantheon, and just use it, right? This could be done nowadays with any hosting, but you need to include VPNs, you need to have things like security, all these things. If they are already built on the same platform, again, you just forget about that. And then this is like, you know a lot more about this because you were there building it, but to give you an idea, when you are building an environment like this where you have sites that need to be isolated, this is nothing like a shared environment where you're just ramping up virtual machines and the file system is shared across the board. This we are talking about file systems that need to be isolated on a kind of Docker or container environment, again, years before Docker happened, right? But you want to give more?
Yeah, so Valhalla, like I mentioned, we had built this ourselves just because there was not that, like Drupal is a weird case for a file system. People upload stuff and then just leave it there forever. They might create, you know, derivatives, and those are going to live there forever. So, you know, the first large sites in Drupal had, you know, gigabytes of files, but like some of those sites still exist, and now they're terabytes of files. And having a dev test live kind of workflow presents some challenges. And so with Valhalla, what we did is early on we realized like these files are never changing. Let's just check and make sure that they're changing. But when people upload them, let's ship it to, at that point it was AWS, but now let's ship it to Google Cloud, attach a hash to it, and just store that hash in a multi-node Cassandra-backed database. So then when you're moving from dev to test to live, all we have to do is move those hashes, and it's a migration experience that feels as if we're actually lifting and moving them between environments, but really we're just doing it in a much more optimized fashion that allows you to move gigabytes of files in minutes up through the pipeline. So that's something that we've spent a lot of, there's a lot more to it where we can send things from the file system to an app server and keep it there for a while. If we see that it's getting traffic, when it's done, we can delete it. That's sort of another extra layer of moving content closer to the user that at this point we've tried doing it with Google, but there's limits on, there's a 2 terabyte limit. There's some other sort of technical challenges that probably mean that we'll stick with Valhalla for a while.
And everything we are talking about the new infrastructure is actually already in production. It's not something that we have a POC and we think is going to be amazing. It's already amazing. If you are one of the lucky customers that already have access to the decouple solution, this is what is already in place in there. I will show in a second and I talk a little bit more about the decouple solution. But for now, stay with this architecture. Scott, do you have any questions about the infrastructure? Because once you have all of this in context, I want to show you, in case you are not familiar with Pantheon, a little bit about the products that, yeah.
1 minute.
We want your question recorded.
All right. My question is super simple. Is Valhalla open source?
Yes and no. The client is, it's a FuseDAB. Okay. FuseDAB is the project. That's open source. How it's implemented is a bunch of code in a lot of different places, so it's not like downloadable, but the client is.
Any other question about this?
I didn't mention, but any question that we have, they will get a hoodie after this session. So come to me and I will give you a hoodie. And if we run out of hoodies, I have t-shirts as well. So all these amazing stuff and technology that we are talking about only makes sense in a context. And the context is on the context of the products that Pantheon gives or Pantheon offers. Probably you all know about multi-site. Who doesn't know about multi-site? I mean, raise your hand. You don't know about multi-site. Okay. I'm just trying to get the people who is sleeping, so thank you.
You're so lucky you don't know about multi-site.
Okay, so multi-site is amazing. It has opened the door since many years ago to realize the dream of just having a single code base and be able to deploy to hundreds of sites, right? I've seen thousands, literally, of sites, but that comes with a lot of problems. The alternative to this, and it's something that frustrates me a lot because this has been there since 2010, is upstreams. The idea is that you can have the same flexibility or the same powerful capability of having the same code base across all the board, and what that does mean in terms of maintainability, because imagine that you have dozens of sites and you have to maintain dozens of code bases. But on the other side, you have very strict way of working because you cannot customize. If you have been working on multi-site, you know what I'm talking about. So you want both of best worlds. You want low maintenance, you want high flexibility, and you want to get rid of the high maintenance costs and the low flexibility that multi-site gives you. And this is exactly what upstreams is giving you. It's giving you a lot of potential. This is probably the bad thing as well, because if you're not careful, you have so much flexibility and so much freedom that you can do as anything in life with Drupal itself, right? But if you do things correctly, you can have single code bases managing hundreds of websites, and those websites can be isolated on their own containers. Again, technology that was before Docker, and that is renewing, right? And the goal is reducing the money that you are spending on new sites, increasing the security, things like core updates, module updates, but also the problem about multi-site is having multiple databases on the same server. If you have a leak of information on one of the sites, the whole server is compromised. So if you have 100 websites, the 100 websites are compromised. Upstreams is actually isolating each one of them. So if one of them gets compromised, that's fine. Well, it's not fine because it's compromised, but the other 100 websites, they are fine, right? And things like shared branding. which is always a problem. I've seen teams investing a lot of time trying to build something that allows you to have this customization between the different websites. That with Upstream is super simple because you have the single code base again, but you have some flexibility to customize at code level on single repositories on each one of the sites. Right? If you want to know about more this technology, come to us, come to the booth, and I will show you a working prototype. And at the end, you want freedom. Right? You want freedom on individual sites. Who hasn't found the issue with you have this single code base, this platform with 100 websites, and suddenly business unit, country, whoever says, yeah, it's amazing, but I want the logo type red. And to change the background of the logo type to red, it means that you have to do a lot of work, maybe a sprint or 2 sprints in order to accommodate to the whole platform, right? Because we are not talking about one site, we're talking about maybe 100 of them, or maybe just 4, right? These kind of things are just very easy with Upstreams. Again, isolated resources, and at the end, it's allowing the collaboration between agencies. Because if you are thinking about this, you have the single code base, and then each one of the agencies can work on isolated code base on each one of the Upstreams. As I was saying, all this is about the customer, about the developer, about improving the product. Multi-site and Upstreams is great, but one of the problems that you will have when you are having 100 websites, or again, just 5 of them, is that every time that you want to go to production, you may break things. And a small change that seems nothing, you never know where it's going to bite you, right? Autopilot, what? Can you hear me? Yes. Autopilot is trying to fix that in a way that every time you try to do a deployment to production, it's giving you for free what normally means a lot of investment in terms of doing visual regression. Right? I don't remember in which team I haven't been where we haven't tried to do some kind of visual regression. We have BHAT, we have unit testing, but at the end, the real test is the eye. Right? If something looks broken, it means that something looks, something is weird, something is, it needs your attention. And this is what Autopilot is doing. It doesn't matter if you have 2 or 3 sites, you can put some safeguards in place. So when you are releasing, for example, a security update, Autopilot will go through your websites, through your platform, and it will raise, be careful here because something looks weird, so it could be broken.
And as we sort of improve on this, like Autopilot exists, anyone who has an agency partner program has access to it and can start like automatically updating their sites. In the future, now that we're moving to cloud build and cloud run, it allows you to deploy deploy at scale, where if you have dozens or hundreds of sites, you can tag sites as being canaries, you can deploy changes to that, you can run Autopilot. If it works, then you can deploy to the, all of the downstream sites.
One of the things that I've received quite a bit of feedback this weekend about why do we have to go to stage before going to production? I want to have the freedom to go to production, right? Well, that's actually a good practice, and that's one of the reasons that Autopilot is there, because it's kind of forcing you to go, just maybe you spend a few more minutes, right? But a few more minutes well spent on making sure that your site is not broken, will ensure you that you don't have headaches with your customer, or maybe you don't lose money, because every time a website is not in production, it potentially means you are losing customers, you are losing money. So all these things are put in place because of that. I won't go into all the features that Autopilot has. Come to our website, it's all in there. Visual regression again is for Drupal, it's for WordPress. It detects performance. Right. I gave a t-shirt, I want to give another t-shirt. Has anyone worked on personalization? What is the big pain point about personalization? Caching? Who said that? Okay, I thought this was 2 shirts. Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the huge pain points on personalization. Every time you try to personalize a website, what happens is you do it with Drupal, you do it with JavaScript. You will have somehow to detect what the user is about. If he's from the US, if he's from Spain, if he's interested on whatever. That means that caching that experience is super difficult. You can do things like using the couple technologies, again, using JavaScript to do these kind of things, but it's difficult and it's not perfect. Some of the things that Pantheon has been working on is on giving an API. Right? This is not the final product. This is not going to cost you hundreds of or thousands of dollars or euros, but you need to invest a bit of time, maybe a sprint of work. But what you are going to have is a product or a website that is going to be personalized for your customer, and it's going to be super fast. The reason for that is because this is going to be stored on the edge. So let's see a quick example. This is Umami, and this is an example that you can see on the p13n.me. So it's live, and you can test it. Super simple again. You go to the website, you see a Umami landing page. You see a lot of meat, right? Any vegetarians in the room? Okay, so go to this website and go to the recipes that really interest you. What is going to happen? That you will go probably to the, is there any vegetarian? I think if you scroll down, I can't because this is just a slide, you will see a vegetarian one. But what is going to happen is that you will go to the taxonomies that you are interested on, you will go to the recipes, to the articles that you are up to, and from the developer point of view, you are going to be sending that information using our API. Right? Fastly, it's going to detect that, our edge, and it will say, okay, you are interested on vegetarian and vegan food, and you are coming from, I don't know, from the US. So what is going to happen is it will get from Drupal a version of that website, which is personalized for that vegetarian people, and the next time you go back to the landing page, the burger or the sticks that you had on the bottom will disappear, and it will show you a specific thing for you, right? A specific recipe, a specific landing. This is, again, whatever you want to do.
And I think like another use case for that's especially important to Drupal people is like complete the sentence. Like Drupal is very fast unless the user is what? Yeah, like logged in, right? But like, what if the user didn't have to log in to do this? Like, this is an anonymous delivery. Like this is, and it doesn't have to be just selections of food. Like this could essentially be a paywall or delivering different regions and personalization that normally you'd have to require someone to log in or drop complex cookies, but the edge can store that, and it's cheap. You know, it's built into the platform, so the website itself doesn't have to do that logic. The edge can cache that and just serve that as if it's anonymous traffic.
So this is a product that is now there. You can start using it, but it's kind of a beta, right? One of the things I want to do, and I was discussing with Scott, is that I want to get this and start building more examples because the potential of this is amazing. And again, it's not going to cost your company, your customer, thousands of dollars every year because there is no fees. This is just on the edge. But there is one more thing. How many of you, I've had a lot of conversations this weekend, and a lot of you have been telling me decoupled, right? Drupal is there, it's not going away anywhere, but it's like it's not growing as much as it was in the past. What is growing a lot is the demand for the couple. Who has seen this pattern? Any of you? Only one, two, three? Yeah, I think a lot more, right? A lot of customers, for whatever reason, they are interested in the couple because the technology is mature. I think it's mature, and because it gives you a lot of benefits. I've heard people that are not convinced about this. I am convinced, but you need to know how to use it, and you need to know how to apply and when to apply, because there are several versions of doing decouple. One is going fully decoupled. The only one could be just going semi-decoupled with using things like progressive decouple blocks or things like that, or things more custom. And another thing I was hearing is I like Pantheon, but we don't have a way to use decouple here, right? So we have to go to AWS or any other technology and build a website in Drupal, wherever, in Pantheon in this case, and then how do we fix that connect? both of worlds. So this is actually something that is already in the platform. It's not available at the moment for everyone. If you are interested, let me know after the session, and we can see if we can get you a demo. But the idea is that like in a month, in 2 months, this year, you're going to have a product where you will have your standard Pantheon UI with your capabilities of spinning up new sites in Drupal or in WordPress. Yeah, okay. And then you will be able to go to a tab, which is a specific decouple tab, where you will be able to choose between Next.js, Gatsby. You spin up that, and then you will be able to connect from the UI itself with the backend. So it will show you, okay, I detect that you have these Drupal backends, which ones you want to connect to. Okay, and then the next step, it will allow you to add parameters, arguments, everything that you will normally have to spend a lot of time to configure, right? So it's going to be everything built for you on Pantheon. I have a demo. It's a bit long. I don't want to go through the whole demo. If you are interested in this one, yeah. Come to me after the demo and I will show you. It's like 20 minutes long, something like that. I don't want to show you the whole demo because after the dinner party yesterday, we are going to go to sleep. Can you just lower the volume? I don't want to hear it, if that's possible. ¿Puedes quitar el volumen? Y a lo mejor ponerlo a 3 de velocidad o 2 de velocidad. Si puede ser, si no. It's okay. Just again, I'm not going to go through the whole demo, but what I want you to see is this is the Pantheon UI. You will be able to spin up new sites like this one or reuse the sites that you have. And then if you see on top, you have the decouple tab. Right? That's what I was talking. You have both worlds connected using the same UI. Is the video playing? Yeah, I think it's super slow. Yeah, it is. Then we go to the decouple tab. We create a new Gatsby, Drupal. At the moment, we only have WordPress with Gatsby and Next.js with Drupal, but this is going to change. And on any case, no one stops you to do something more custom, right? Even the whole Pantheon platform, you can do things like storing static content. You don't necessarily need to even store Drupal or WordPress or even things like Joomla, right? So this will be the same. It will ask you for your GitHub. It will ask you for the repository where your code is in there. And if you see at the bottom, this is what I was talking about, connecting your existing CMS backend with whatever you are building. So again, you can go just fully whatever Pantheon is giving me and spin up whatever you offer me, so I can start playing with that, or you can bring your code base. I'm not going to go show the whole demo because it's super long. So if you are interested in seeing this, on seeing the demo or watching the demo or playing with the toy, just come to me later. And I think that's it.
That's it. Do we have 5 minutes total, or do we have time for questions?
I think we still have 4 or 5 more hoodies. If anyone is interested and has a question.
4 or 5 really hard questions for Alex. The harder, the better.
Thanks for the talk. It's an amazing product. I wanted to ask you about the part for the personalization. That's done on the API is calling a single website. We will have like a different version from outside to serve the personalization. How this will work under the hood?
So the way this works, and don't push me too much because this is new, and I've just been playing with this, right? My goal is play a lot more and bring you some demos and some examples and some code where you can prove the technology. But the way it works is you as a developer are going to build versions of a landing page, imagine, right? And Netly or Fastly will detect that, and it will say, okay, this guy is or this girl or whatever, this is this type of customer interested of this. Potentially, this is going to generate thousands of versions of that single website, right? Or that single landing page. But it doesn't matter. You can generate as many as you want. Fastly is going to store it on the edge. And when it detects that your same type of customer, your profile is the similar as this one, it will serve the one cached. If it's not cached, it will go to Drupal. It will be the same slow experience. Slow. It doesn't need to be too slow, but it won't be as fast as edge speed.
So we'll be at a content level version, not the whole site. Just
it will be the whole specific page, not the whole site.
Yeah. I mean,
and it works for each one of the URLs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, but the idea is that we know that Drupal sites are built with paragraphs or lots of different logic to render content. So it's more about identifying the personas that you want to target, whether there's 1 or 50. Identify the logic behind how you want to render different content, whether it's based on taxonomy or any sort of variable that you can access or set in the code. And then it's about connecting that to paragraphs or display suite or whatever you're doing to render. And so it's much more of like an SDK where you can build that logic and deploy it to the cloud. Like if you've used Netlify, you've seen how awesome that developer experience is. That's the point of it, is it's not like the admin panel in Drupal. It's like something you build and deploy.
By the way, I thought your boss was on the other room. It's okay, I won't say anything.
Thank you for the talk. I've got a question about autopilot, because you're doing automatic updates. So that means that you are somehow writing on the repo if everything works. So that's the first and main question, and then kind of follow up from that is one of the initiatives of Drupal is automatic updates. Are you somehow collaborating with them, because it seems that you guys are doing something about it already?
Automatic updates has been there in Pantheon for many years, right? Now it's coming to Drupal itself. Yeah. Maybe you have more context on.
So we are looking at it and investigating it. I can't say for sure whether we're collaborating on it. We're definitely open to that. We're still developing new features. I think it's going to be kind of a different thing, but I think that essentially, if again, it's sort of a roadmap issue. If we feel like Drupal is going to do it better, we'll pull ours out, or we'll figure out some way for it to work together. I think I don't know, to be honest, is the short answer how we're going to collaborate, or how we're going to offer one, both, or none. I think like in the WordPress world, we've shut WordPress off. We don't let people do that, just because like changing code in production is a very WordPress thing to do, and we're trying to give people a different philosophy about that. But I think that right now, what we have working, we definitely are open to sharing with that initiative, the Drupal initiative.
And then the way it currently works, you apply the update, you update the repo, and does that notify all the developers or the other possible environments that they have spin up? Like, how do those changes apply to all the environments?
Yeah, it's basically the question was how does it let you know? Or so the basic settings allow you to determine really what happens. Like you can choose core, contrib, or core contrib or theme rather, and it'll run it daily or weekly, and then it can deploy directly to a multi-dev. It runs the visual regression testing, and if you were using any of your own particular testing, it can do that, and then it'll deploy it to either dev and keep it there. If it fails, it doesn't do anything, it doesn't deploy. But if you can also set it to deploy to live. So like what we see people do, and then it notifies you. It'll send you an email if it fails. It'll send you an email if it deploys. You'll see it on the dashboard. Or you can, and if it fails, you can dive into it, kind of like Circle CI or anything like that. You can dive into the multi-dev and see what happened and see what the difference is.
I think it's as well about freedom, right? I was talking about upstreams and the capabilities and what it gives you in terms of freedoms of what you can do. And the new automatic updates for Drupal, I think it's about freedom. There are some type of users that are happy to go to production and just do the updates very quickly and install new things and things like that, right? It depends on you. I personally, if I have a big customer, I don't want to do that in production. I prefer to do it in a more controlled way, following good practices, right? If that means using the automatic updates from Drupal, maybe at some point it makes more sense to collaborate with Drupal and maybe do something contributed to the community, right? So not just Pantheon benefits what we already have, but also the rest of the community. So it's about freedom.
Any other question? Yeah, we have a couple of minutes for the last question.
You cannot have two hoodies, okay?
Okay. The first question. I have like two questions. So does Pantheon offer any like CI/CD runners? Because we always have to delegate to some other building tool like Circle CI, and then we have to push it back to Pantheon, you know. And now that you have decoupled and front ends, and maybe it makes sense to build these on Pantheon because you have Google stuff already.
Yes, and that's what Cloud Run will allow us to do much more easily. Decoupled is using that technology. Drupal is not currently. Like Drupal uses, you know, the Git repo you all know and love or hate. But yeah, that's the goal. Is like we know that it's outdated. We also know that something like 30% of the sites on the more than that use that. Like that's their main repo. So like when you build a product, it's kind of hard to say like. So we're trying to figure out how to do that, but I think, yeah, the goal is like it's on decoupled where you can hook up your repo, like you saw where you can do that. The goal is to do that with Drupal and take advantage of, you know, more Quicksilver to run those hooks. I don't know if we want to get in the business of trying, like, you know, Circle and those companies are pretty mature products, and for us to build it, I don't think we'd do it as well as they would. But I think we want, you know, 2010 Pantheon was built for 2010 developers, where it was like dev test and live is a cool thing, you know, it's a good thing to have. We want this to be built for the majority of 2022 developers, and then if you want to do more, it's much easier to do if you want to run your own complex CI/CD. So yes, we want to do that. I'm not sure how we'll do it, but.
Okay, follow-up question. You said 30% used it as a main repo, so 70% don't use it as the main repo. So I'm in the 70%. Maybe we could, was there anywhere like a plan to basically not to have it as a Git repo? Maybe, I don't know, Docker repository like ECR. I mean, I'm again thinking in AWS, but maybe there's a Google alternative, or maybe GitHub packages or something like this.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely, part of it is just like the engineering that it would take to allow us to do that, and that's why Decoupled is using Cloud Build and Cloud Run to allow us to even get to that point. And like my number is semi-made up. Like probably, I think like professional teams, which is a lot of our users, our agencies, are doing their own deployments. But the average site builder, they're pretty much on our repo, and like they use that in multi-dev and it works just fine. And so yeah, we'll have to kind of figure it out for both personas. It's not all about you. It's about everybody. But we're trying.
Very interesting, but we have to finish here because we have another session after this.
Yeah,
so, many thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.